lean more towards the mind, and I believe the mind caused a lot of issues. And obviously as myself as a kid, I used to chalk up a lot of this stuff as a kid, but when it started to impact everyone around me is when I started to have these moments where it's like, is this actually in my head? Because they're seeing it. So to just kind of start it off, when we first moved into that house, it kind of seemed weird. It was an older house, and it wasn't anything like. It just looked like a house. It wasn't like, the creepy mansion on some hill, like lightning strikes every 5 minutes. It's just a house on Q Street. There's nothing too crazy about it. So once we're all settled in, my sister actually. So there's 2 bedrooms upstairs. There's a bigger room, and then there's a smaller room. My sister wanted the smaller room while we were growing up. She was 5 years older than me, so obviously, and sister, she gets their way. So she took that room. And the weird thing is, she started having nightmares in that room. She started having weird, terrible nightmares at night. She used to freak out, and she didn't want to be in that room anymore. She just did not like it. And so I was like, you know what? I'll take the smaller space. I don't care. I'll like it. And a weird thing about this was our animals. Our dogs we'd take out. They used to stare up at that window all the time, and I used to not think anything of it. I was just like, dogs are stupid. That was my logic. Dogs are dumb. And so I started sleeping in there. And, obviously this is early 2000s. I wasn't, the richest guy in the world. So I'm still rocking one of those old school big old box TVs, baby. I mean, I was happy to have a TV that I could put in my room. It was just our old ass one. But that bitch had an antenna on it for a bit. So when I moved in there, everything felt fine at first, little Mike running around, lottie fucking da, playing with his toys, living life up. And then things started getting weird at night. I would start having this reoccurring nightmare of these 3 shadows. And it was weird because there wasn't too much physical definition, and it didn't necessarily seem like the creepiest thing in the world. It wasn't. It literally was just like I'd see these 3 shadows on my wall. And to kind of give a brief breakdown of how my room looked, it was small, so it won't take long. So I had my bed, and you know how some houses are built with the wall where it's like that? Mm-hmm. And it's it's got that corner piece to it. My bed was underneath that corner piece. The 3 shadows would appear going up the wall, up that corner piece, and so I'm looking straight up at this, and there's these 3 shadows, and when I would step off the bed and look to the side, now they're on that side of that wall. It's like they're following me. And one night, I actually thought I was having a nightmare. I thought I was still asleep. I thought I was lucid dreaming. Because I was like, well, I've learned about lucid dreaming, baby. I'm just really immersed in my nightmare. So I see these 3 shadows, and I get off my bed, and my TV just goes staticky. And I think it was in that moment I realized I was awake. Because my TV was just kind of how old school commercials were. And it just kind of cut to static. And I don't know why that's a staple of the horror genre. Maybe it's just because so many accounts of it. And I think it has something to do with paranormal entities create something to do with the electrical magnetic field and distort technology around them. And it literally could have just been my TV going to shit at that point too. And that's why I will tell it part of this, but I won't correlate the two. It could have just been happenstance. But the thing is, my door, I never locked my door. My door didn't lock easy. I freaked out. Obviously, I'm like, what the fuck? There's shadows on my wall. My TV's staticky. I'm going to die. So I ran to go open my door, and my door would not budge, no matter how hard I pulled. And, obviously, I'm a kid. I'm not the strongest thing in the world. Even the weakest adult could bitch slap the shit out of me. But I don't know why that's my example of it. But I'm pulling, and this door will not budge, and I'm just freaking out. And it just felt like the static was getting louder and louder. And finally, the door just gave, and I fell on my ass. And I got up and I just ran out of the room. I was freaking out. I ran to my parents. They're like, what's going on? And I explained the situation to them, and that's when my sister kind of told me her side of things and how what she experienced. It was completely different. She was just having nightmares, but mine just got very specific. And so I was like, all right, well, maybe I'm just overreacting. I ate too much sugar. I stayed up late. I don't know. I was very grounded as a kid. I had a very old soul. So I was like, whatever. And so I just stayed in that room. And the shadows started coming again for another week or two, and then they ceased. And I was like, it's done. It's good. And then one day, let me note that this is the afternoon. I'm not up late. I'm not smoking crack at 10, nor now. Uh, so I'm sitting there on my bed, and all of a sudden, the bed just like three creases, like three people just sat down simultaneously on it, but you can't see anything. So, like three creases just happened at the end of my bed, and I felt my bed shift, and it freaked me the fuck out, obviously. And I was like, nope, I'm not staying in that room anymore. And at this point, that's when my sister left for college, so I took the big room. I was like, yep, I'm done with that room. By that point, this room has been established as kind of the nightmare room. You guys have. This is when you guys were starting to hear about it from me, and I told you about what Brandon Champagne's dad told me, right?
I don't.
No.
You might have, but
yeah, we gotta. I want to talk to him about it again because I want to know if he was just fucking with me, because he gave me a ride back home from wrestling practice once, and when we got there, he's like, "This is the house you live in," and I was like, "Yeah," and he's like, "You know that house is haunted, right?" This is an adult telling a kid this, so it's not like I'm not the only. And I want Brandon to talk to his dad about this and see if he remembers it, and I would love to hear about it. If he's like, "I don't fucking remember," I'll be like, "All right," but no, his dad told me that, and I was like, "Well, that's great to know. Thanks." So obviously now there is that thought in my head, but and obviously I'm not the only one feeling this way at this point. My parents are even skeptical, and my dad, you know, my dad, he's not the kind of person to be skeptical about shit like that. My dad would rather just tell you to fuck off, even if you're a ghost. But so I moved into this big room, and everything was good. Everything was fine. Oh, God. I actually spaced on one moment that happened before this, and of course, it has to be with one of those staple or those one of those what's the word I'm looking for? One of those big things you see used in horror. My sister loved porcelain dolls. I don't know if you remember ever coming over and seeing her porcelain dolls. If not, it's okay.
No, I don't remember personally.
Your memory's saved on that. So she had a fuck ton of them for no reason. I was like, I get it, you're a girl, but do you need all these? They're creepy. I fucking hate them. And this one, I will still always say to this day, it's probably just my imagination. And I don't know why I used to do this, but when you went up my stairs, there was a little closet right there.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to hang out in that closet and like essentially destroy shit and try to put it back together. I was better at the former than the latter, so I broke a lot of shit. But so I'd just sit in there and just tinker with shit. Like my dad's walkie-talkie broke, so I stripped it apart one time. And I was sitting in there. My sister failed to tell me she moved her porcelain dolls in there. And like I saw them, whatever, it freaked me out. But then I was like, yeah, they're just dolls. And I'm just sitting there. All of a sudden, she has this one. I will never forget what this fucking thing looks like because it doesn't look creepy, but it still feels creepy that it's just sitting there. It was in a wedding dress. It had like bird net hair. It had those dead doll eyes they all fucking have. And I'm just sitting there, and all of a sudden, I felt like I was being watched. And I just like look over as I'm like tinkering with this this little walkie-talkie that's all busted, and I look over, and all of a sudden I just see this thing kind of sitting up, and its like hands are like, it's like this, just sitting like this. Yeah. All right. Sitting like this, like just hands in its lap, and like obviously fixed fingers, so it's kind of like awkward, like sitting like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the first thing I noticed was the hands, and then I look up, and all of a sudden, like I swear to God, the head moved. I swear to fucking God, but I tell you that I did not have enough time to stick around to confirm it because I was already halfway down the fucking staircase after it happened. Because it was one of those split moments where it was kind of like, it wasn't like that. It didn't do like the Exorcist, like wow, like head spinning like a fucking top. It was just a minor, like little, like that. Like it was just a slight turn to like focus right on me, and I was like, never going back in there. No. I was like, we need to burn this fucking place down.